Let's be real, folks. A woman who's been sexually experienced leaves traces long before she ever tells you anything. Most men know this feeling. You meet a woman, and the chemistry is immediate. She's comfortable with intimacy. She moves fast. She talks openly. Sex doesn't feel like a big step for her. At first it feels exciting, but not long after something feels hollow. The connection lacks depth. Emotional bonding feels slippery, and you can't quite explain why. Here's where most men get confused. You're told not to judge the past, to focus only on the present. That advice sounds noble, but it ignores one truth. Repeated sexual experiences shape behavior, attachment, and emotional thresholds. The past doesn't disappear. It shows up in patterns. Women don't walk around announcing their history. They reveal it through how they relate to intimacy, validation, boundaries, and emotional closeness. If you don't understand those signals, you misread attraction as connection and intensity as intimacy. This video isn't about shaming or numbers. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing the subtle signs that repeated sexual exposure leaves behind, why some women struggle to bond deeply, and how men end up emotionally invested before realizing something's missing. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to show you what to see. Let's get into it. Number 1. Why her past always leaks out. Let's be honest, folks. A woman's past never disappears. It conditions her nervous system, her expectations, and how she relates to intimacy today. This is not about judgment. It is about cause and effect. Repetition wires behavior, and behavior eventually shows itself without permission. Men often believe the past stays in the past if no one talks about it. That belief is comforting, but it is false. Emotional and sexual patterns do not reset with age or intention. They express themselves through reactions, boundaries, and how quickly someone moves toward or away from closeness. Here's why the past leaks out. Experiences shape tolerance. Repeated casual intimacy raises the threshold for excitement and lowers sensitivity to bonding. Over time, novelty replaces connection as the main driver of desire. When that happens, depth feels unfamiliar and intensity feels normal. Take Michael, 57, from California. He starts dating Lisa, 49. Lisa is confident, playful, and very comfortable with sexual topics early on. Things escalate quickly, but after a few weeks, Michael notices something missing. Conversations stay surface level. Emotional closeness stalls. When Michael slows the pace, Lisa becomes restless. Her past isn't spoken, but it's influencing the present. Another example, David, 61, from Ohio, meets Karen, 53. Karen connects fast, shares openly, and seeks constant validation. At first it feels flattering. Over time it feels draining. Karen isn't broken. She's conditioned. Years of attention-driven intimacy taught her to feel alive through external reinforcement. This is how leakage works, not through confessions but through patterns. She may struggle with boredom in stable dynamics. She may confuse chemistry with compatibility. She may need constant stimulation to feel engaged. None of this is conscious deception. It is learned response. Let's be real for a moment. People adapt to what they repeat. Stoic thinkers understood this. Epictetus warned that habits become character. When behavior is practiced often enough, it becomes automatic. The body remembers even when the mind wants to move on. Men get into trouble when they ignore these signals. They tell themselves to be patient, open-minded, or non-judgmental. But ignoring patterns does not make them disappear. It only delays clarity. Consider James, 59, from New York, with Angela, 51. Angela moves quickly into intimacy, but pulls back when conversations turn serious. James senses inconsistency, but rationalizes it. Months later, he realizes emotional availability never arrived. The signs were there from the beginning. Here's the key insight, my friend. You are not evaluating her past. You are evaluating her present behavior. The past only matters because it shapes the present. A grounded man watches patterns without resentment and decides accordingly. This awareness is power. It keeps you from confusing intensity with intimacy and attraction with compatibility. It allows you to stay calm instead of reactive. Awareness does not mean condemnation. It means choosing reality over fantasy. You can respect her choices and still decide what works for you. That clarity protects your time, your energy, and your emotional investment. Mature men do not argue with patterns. They observe, accept, and move with intention. That discipline is not cold. It is self-respect, and it is what keeps attraction aligned instead of chaotic over time, especially in long-term relationships today. If this resonates, write this in the comments. I see patterns. Stick with me, because the next part reveals how experience changes behavior in ways most men completely overlook. Number 2. When experience changes her behavior. Let's be clear about this, folks. Experience doesn't just add memories, it reshapes behavior. Repeated sexual and emotional experiences condition how a woman responds to intimacy, attention, and connection in the present. This isn't morality, it's psychology. What's repeated becomes familiar, and what's familiar becomes normal. When experience accumulates, thresholds change. Excitement requires more stimulation. Emotional intensity replaces emotional depth. Stability can feel dull, while novelty feels alive. That shift doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't require bad intentions. It happens because the nervous system adapts to what it's fed. This is why some behaviors stand out. Comfort with intimacy very early. Rapid escalation without emotional grounding. A relaxed attitude toward sex paired with impatience toward bonding. These are not flaws, they are adaptations. The body learns what works to create feeling, and it keeps reaching for the same levers. Stoic philosophy understood this long before modern psychology. Epictetus warned that repeated actions carve pathways in the soul. When a behavior is reinforced again and again, it becomes automatic. The body moves before the mind reflects. That's conditioning, not character. Another change experience brings is emotional pacing. With repetition, emotions move faster and resolve faster. There's less tolerance for slow-building connection. The moment intensity dips, restlessness appears. This can look like boredom, distraction, or a constant need for reassurance. Not because something is wrong, but because the baseline has shifted. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind becomes colored by what it dwells upon. When attention has been trained on stimulation, calm can feel empty. When validation has been frequent, silence can feel like rejection. These reactions are learned responses, not conscious choices. Men often misread these behaviors. They assume confidence means readiness for depth. They confuse openness with availability. But experience can create fluency without capacity. Someone can navigate intimacy easily while struggling to sustain emotional closeness over time. This is where men get stuck. They feel strong chemistry but weak bonding. They sense momentum without direction. They invest emotionally, hoping depth will catch up. Sometimes it does. Often it doesn't. The behavior you see early is the clearest data you'll get. Here's the important Stoic reframe. Observation is not judgment. Seeing patterns is not condemnation. Seneca taught that wisdom begins with seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be. You are not required to fix, save, or endure dynamics that don't align with your values. Experience also changes boundaries. When boundaries have been crossed, often they can become flexible by default. That flexibility can feel liberating at first, then destabilizing later. Clear structure supports bonding, Loose structure supports movement. Knowing the difference matters. A grounded man doesn't argue with conditioning. He doesn't shame it. He simply asks a quiet question. Does this behavior support the kind of connection I want? If the answer is no, he adjusts without resentment. This perspective protects you. It keeps you from confusing intensity with intimacy and chemistry with compatibility. It allows you to move slowly, watch consistently, and decide deliberately. If this makes sense to you, write this in the comments. I observe behavior. Stay with me, because next we'll break down the emotional patterns men ignore and why those blind spots cost them clarity later on. Number 3. Emotional patterns men ignore. Let's be honest with ourselves, folks. The biggest mistakes men make are not about what they see. They're about what they dismiss. Emotional patterns don't announce themselves loudly. They repeat quietly, and men often explain them away because chemistry feels good in the moment. One pattern men ignore is emotional acceleration without grounding. Things move fast emotionally, conversations get intense early, and vulnerability appears quickly. That can feel like connection, but speed is not depth. When emotions escalate faster than trust, instability usually follows. Take Brian, 58, from New Jersey. He starts dating Nicole, 51. Within weeks, Nicole shares deeply personal stories, strong emotions, and intense attraction. Brian feels chosen. But he also notices something else. When things slow down or feel normal, Nicole becomes restless and distant. Brian tells himself she's just passionate. What he ignores is the pattern. Intensity replaces consistency. Another pattern is emotional highs followed by emotional withdrawal. A woman is warm, engaged, and expressive one day, then cool and detached the next without explanation. Men often blame stress or timing, but inconsistency is information. Emotional availability that switches on and off usually reflects conditioning, not circumstance. Consider Mark, 60, from Arizona, seeing Angela, 52. Angela is affectionate and open during dates, then emotionally unavailable for days afterward. Mark waits patiently, believing closeness will stabilize things. It doesn't. The pattern stays the same. Mark ignored what was already clear. Another overlooked pattern is validation hunger. She needs frequent reassurance, attention, and affirmation to feel settled. Compliments soothe her temporarily, but the need returns quickly. Men misread this as insecurity they can heal. In reality, it's often a learned dependency on external validation. Then there's emotional detachment, disguised as confidence. She seems unbothered, independent, and relaxed about intimacy, but struggles to emotionally invest over time. Men admire the lack of drama, not realizing bonding never deepens. Calm without attachment is not stability, it's distance. James, 55, from Washington, dates Laura, 49. Laura is easygoing and sexually open, but avoids serious emotional conversations. When James brings up the future, Laura deflects or jokes. James tells himself not to push. Months later, nothing has changed. The emotional ceiling was there from the start. Men ignore these patterns because attraction clouds judgment. Chemistry creates hope. Hope fills gaps logic should question. But patterns don't lie. They repeat because they're familiar to the nervous system. Stoic thinking teaches us to observe without emotional bias. Marcus Aurelius reminded us to look at what happens repeatedly, not what we wish would happen eventually. Emotional patterns reveal future dynamics more accurately than promises ever will. Here's the key insight. Patterns don't mean something is wrong with her. They mean something is consistent, and consistency is what you must decide around. You're not obligated to endure dynamics that don't align with the connection you want. Grounded men don't argue with patterns. They don't rush to label or rescue. They notice, slow down, and decide from clarity, not fantasy. That discipline protects your emotional investment and keeps attraction grounded in reality, not projection. If you've overlooked these signs before, write this in the comments. I notice patterns. Stick with me, because next we'll break down how validation becomes a habit and why that habit quietly destabilizes attraction. Number 4. How validation becomes a habit. Let's be direct here, folks. Validation does not start as a weakness. It starts as a response. Over time, repeated exposure turns it into a habit. And once validation becomes a habit, it quietly reshapes attraction, bonding, and emotional balance in ways most men never notice until it is too late. Validation feels good. Attention feels regulating. Compliments feel calming. But when emotional or sexual experiences rely heavily on external affirmation, the nervous system adapts. It begins to expect stimulation from outside rather than stability from within. What once felt optional becomes necessary. This is how habits form, not through excess alone, but through repetition. When reassurance, desire, and attention arrive frequently and without depth, the nervous system learns to seek them reflexively. Calm without input starts to feel empty. Silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels like rejection. Stoic philosophy warned about this long before modern psychology. Epictetus taught that dependency forms when we attach our sense of worth to things outside our control. Validation is external. When it becomes the source of emotional regulation, instability follows. Validation habits often look harmless. Seeking frequent reassurance, needing constant engagement, feeling unsettled when attention drops. These behaviors are not manipulative, they are adaptive. But adaptation has consequences. Desire weakens when attention becomes a requirement instead of a choice. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed by the color of its thoughts. When attention is constantly required to feel grounded, relationships become transactional. Attraction becomes maintenance. The moment effort drops, anxiety rises. Men often mistake this for chemistry. Intensity feels exciting. Constant communication feels close. But attraction rooted in validation does not sustain depth. It demands repetition. Over time, that demand exhausts polarity. Another effect of validation habits is boundary erosion. When attention regulates emotion, boundaries soften. Intimacy accelerates. Emotional disclosure arrives early, without structure. This creates a feeling of closeness without foundation. When reality slows, the pace discomfort appears. Stoicism teaches restraint and internal regulation. Seneca warned that pleasures which cannot be refused easily become chains. Validation is no different. When it cannot be delayed, absence feels threatening. Attraction cannot grow under threat. Men also fall into a trap here. They believe providing validation builds security. In the short term, it does. In the long term, it creates dependency. Dependency shifts dynamics. You become a source of emotional fuel rather than a presence she leans toward. Here is the key insight. Validation should be occasional, not constant. Chosen, not required. When validation becomes a habit, desire loses its edge. Stability replaces tension. Comfort replaces curiosity. A grounded man does not compete with the validation habit. He does not starve it either. He stays steady. He offers presence without feeding dependency. That balance reveals truth quickly. This is not about blame. It is about awareness. Validation habits form through experience, not character flaws. Seeing them clearly allows you to decide calmly instead of reacting emotionally. Stoicism teaches choice through clarity. When you observe validation-seeking patterns without judgment, you regain control of your investment. If you want to go deeper into how these dynamics work and learn how to stay grounded without overcorrecting, consider joining the channel membership. That's where we break down these patterns in more detail and show how to navigate them without losing attraction or self-respect. If this perspective resonates, write this in the comments. I choose clarity. Stay with me, because next we'll break down why bonding feels hard and how men misread that resistance every time. Number 5. Why bonding feels hard for her. Let's talk honestly, folks. When bonding feels difficult, it's rarely about lack of interest. It's about conditioning. Bonding requires slowness, emotional tolerance, and the ability to sit with one person long enough for depth to form. When experience has trained someone to move quickly from spark to spark, staying still feels uncomfortable. This is where many men get confused. Attraction is present, chemistry exists, sex may even be easy, but emotional bonding feels delayed or blocked. Men assume time will fix it. Often time only exposes the gap more clearly. Take Eric, 59, from Illinois. He's dating Rachel, 51. The physical connection is strong and immediate. Rachel is warm, playful, and expressive. But when Eric tries to build emotional continuity, something stalls. Plans stay short-term. Conversations reset instead of deepening. Eric feels close, yet strangely distant at the same time. Bonding requires nervous system safety. It requires repetition with the same person without constant novelty. When someone has been conditioned by frequent new connections, stability can feel dull or restrictive. That doesn't mean they dislike you. It means their system isn't used to slowing down. Another example. Thomas, 62, from North Carolina, meets Melissa, 54. Melissa opens up emotionally early but struggles to stay present when things become routine. When Thomas suggests deeper commitment, Melissa feels pressured instead of secure. Bonding feels heavy to her, not comforting. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Repeated short-term connections train the brain to associate excitement with newness, not familiarity. Over time, calm connection feels flat. This makes sustained bonding feel like effort instead of relief. Men often personalize this. They think they're not enough. They try harder, give more, invest deeper. That rarely works. Bonding cannot be forced. It emerges when both nervous systems are oriented toward depth, not stimulation. Another pattern appears when bonding triggers restlessness. As closeness increases, anxiety rises. She may create distance, distractions, or emotional resets. Men misread this as fear of commitment. Often it's fear of stillness. Look at Brian, 57, from Nevada, with Susan, 49. Susan enjoys intimacy but becomes unsettled during emotional consistency. When Brian shows reliability, Susan becomes distracted. Her system equates unpredictability with aliveness. Bonding feels unfamiliar. This doesn't make her broken. It makes her patterned. Patterns form through repetition, not intention. Awareness matters more than blame. Bonding also requires internal regulation. When validation has been external for too long, deep bonding feels risky. One person becomes emotionally significant, which increases vulnerability. Casual connections reduce risk by spreading attachment thin. Men must understand this clearly. You cannot bond for someone else. You can only observe whether bonding is happening naturally. If it isn't, effort won't create it. A grounded man does not chase bonding. He allows it to develop or not. He stays steady and watches patterns over time. That patience protects him from overinvestment. If bonding feels consistently hard, believe the pattern. Attraction without bonding leads to instability. Clarity prevents resentment. If you've felt this before, comment below. I see the gap. Stick with me, because next we'll break down the signs of sexual desensitization and how they quietly reshape intimacy. Number 6. The signs of sexual desensitization. Let's be real, folks. Sexual desensitization does not mean someone is broken. It means their nervous system has adapted to repeated stimulation. When novelty is constant, intensity becomes normal, and normal starts to feel dull. That shift quietly changes how desire works, how intimacy feels, and how connection is processed. This happens gradually. Repetition lowers sensitivity. What once felt exciting now requires more input. What once felt intimate now feels familiar too quickly. Stoic thinkers understood this pattern. Marcus Aurelius warned that the soul becomes shaped by what it repeatedly consumes. Sexual experiences are no exception. One sign of desensitization is emotional flatness after intensity. Passion rises fast and fades just as fast. There is excitement without afterglow. Another sign is boredom inside stability. Calm connection feels empty, not peaceful. Silence feels uncomfortable, not safe. Another sign is escalation without satisfaction. Desire pushes forward, but fulfillment never lands. This creates a loop of seeking without settling. Seneca cautioned that pleasures pursued without measure lose their power to satisfy. That insight applies here. Desensitization also shows up in boundaries. Intimacy advances quickly, yet emotional availability remains limited. There is access without depth, disclosure without integration. These patterns confuse men because they look like confidence. In reality, they are coping strategies learned through repetition. Here is the part most men miss. Desensitization is not about morality, it is about tolerance. When stimulation has been high, subtlety disappears. Small gestures stop registering. Consistency feels invisible. The nervous system keeps scanning for intensity. Epictetus taught that freedom comes from mastering appetite. When appetite runs unchecked, satisfaction shrinks. A person can enjoy sex and still struggle to feel deeply. That is the cost of repeated intensity. For a grounded man, the lesson is simple. Do not argue with patterns, do not shame them. Observe how she responds to calm. Watch how she handles stillness. Behavior answers questions, words never will. Sexual desensitization does not mean no connection is possible. It means connection requires conditions that are rare. Patience, slowness, regulation. Without those, attraction burns hot and leaves nothing behind. Men who misunderstand this try to increase excitement instead of increasing structure. They push for more stimulation, more novelty, more intensity, believing desire will return. It rarely does. Structure, not stimulation, restores sensitivity. Slowing the pace, limiting access, and allowing space recalibrates the nervous system. Stoicism emphasizes moderation for this reason. When life is consumed without restraint, pleasure dulls and attention scatters. When restraint returns, perception sharpens again. This is not control, it is calibration. A man who understands this does not chase passion. He creates conditions where passion can breathe. That is leadership. Over time, this approach separates men who feel drained from men who feel chosen. One reacts to desire, the other contains it. Containment restores meaning and makes intimacy feel earned, not automatic. That difference decides whether connection deepens or dissolves quietly without drama. Most men never learn this because no one explains it clearly. Now you can. Use this knowledge deliberately, not emotionally. It changes outcomes fast, and it protects your self-respect long-term, always. If this feels familiar, my friend, it is because many men experience it without language. Naming it restores clarity. Clarity restores choice. Write this below. I choose clarity. Stay with me, because the next part reveals when boundaries feel too loose and why that changes everything. Number 7. When boundaries feel too loose. Let's be straight about this, folks. Boundaries are not about control, they are about structure. And when boundaries feel too loose, attraction loses its footing, not because anyone did something wrong, but because structure is what allows desire to stay focused instead of scattered. Loose boundaries often show up early, access comes fast, personal details spill quickly, time and availability blur. At first it feels refreshing, no games, no walls. But over time, something feels unstable. When everything is allowed, nothing feels chosen. Take Mark, 58, from Texas. He meets Jennifer, 51. Jennifer is open right away. Late night calls, deep personal stories, physical closeness early on. Mark feels trusted. But weeks later he notices inconsistency. Plans change easily. Emotional tone shifts without explanation. There is closeness without commitment. Boundaries were open, but direction was missing. Now look at another situation. Stephen, 60, from Massachusetts, dates Claire, 53. Claire is warm and engaging, but boundaries around time, pace, and intimacy are clear. Stephen feels invited, not consumed. Over time, attraction deepens because access feels intentional. Boundaries created safety, not distance. Loose boundaries often come from repetition. When intimacy has been frequent and varied, boundaries lose their signaling power. They stop marking importance. Everything becomes available, so nothing stands out. Men misread this as confidence or freedom, but freedom without structure feels chaotic to the nervous system. Another example, Kevin, 56, from Oregon, dates Michelle, 48. Michelle allows emotional closeness quickly, but struggles with exclusivity. Kevin feels special one moment and interchangeable the next. There are no clear lines. Kevin feels unsettled but cannot explain why. The lack of boundaries removed polarity. Boundaries create contrast. Contrast creates desire. When boundaries are loose, contrast disappears. Emotional access feels casual. Physical access feels routine. That routine erodes attraction quietly. Men often think tightening boundaries will push her away. In reality, clear boundaries reveal alignment faster. If structure creates resistance, that resistance is information. It tells you how comfortable she is with depth and limitation. Loose boundaries also affect respect. When everything is available, investment feels optional. When investment feels optional, commitment weakens. This is not punishment, it is psychology. What costs nothing feels worth less. Grounded men do not demand boundaries. They live inside them. They pace connection. They protect their time. They do not reward inconsistency with more access. That behavior recalibrates the dynamic naturally. Consider Andrew, 62, from Virginia, dating Lisa, 54. Lisa is used to fluid boundaries. Andrew stays calm and consistent. He doesn't chase. He doesn't withdraw dramatically. He maintains structure. Lisa either adapts or fades. Either outcome gives Andrew clarity. Here is the key insight. Boundaries are not walls, they are frames. Frames allow connection to develop shape. Without shape, intimacy spills everywhere and loses meaning. If boundaries feel too loose, pay attention, not with judgment, but with awareness. Ask yourself whether the connection feels chosen or merely available. That question tells you everything. If this resonates with you, write this in the comments. I value structure. Stay with me, because next we'll break down why intimacy starts to feel different and what that shift really means for you. Number 8. Why intimacy feels different. Let's talk about this plainly, folks. When intimacy feels different, it's not imagination, it's perception catching up to reality. Intimacy changes when the nervous system has been trained by repetition, stimulation, and speed. What once felt connective now feels mechanical. What once felt meaningful now feels familiar too quickly. Intimacy is not just physical closeness, it's how presence is exchanged. It's pacing, tension, and emotional availability moving together. When those elements fall out of sync, intimacy loses its depth, even if attraction is still present. Here's what changes first. Sensitivity. Repetition dulls perception. The nervous system adapts to frequent intensity and starts requiring more to register the same feeling. Calm connection becomes quiet noise. Subtle affection stops landing. Intimacy becomes something that happens, not something that settles. Stoic philosophy warned about this long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote that pleasure loses its power when it becomes habitual. When stimulation is constant, meaning thins out. Intimacy thrives on presence, not excess. Another shift happens in emotional engagement. Intimacy normally invites vulnerability, but when experiences have been numerous and fast, vulnerability feels optional. Emotional distance can coexist with physical closeness. That mismatch is what men feel when intimacy starts to feel hollow. This is why some connections feel intense but empty afterward. There is contact without integration, experience without imprint. Seneca cautioned that when desire is indulged without restraint, satisfaction becomes brief and restless. That restlessness is felt as emotional disconnect. Intimacy also feels different when novelty has been the main driver. Newness excites. Familiarity requires depth. When novelty fades, the connection has nothing to rest on. Calm becomes boredom. Silence becomes awkward. Stillness becomes uncomfortable. Men often misread this as incompatibility or fading attraction. But the deeper issue is conditioning. Intimacy requires the ability to slow down and stay. When the nervous system expects movement, staying feels wrong. Another factor is emotional regulation. Intimacy feels safe when both people can regulate themselves. When regulation has depended on external stimulation, closeness increases vulnerability. Vulnerability feels risky. Distance becomes protective. Epictetus taught that we suffer when we attach our peace to what lies outside us. When intimacy depends on constant input, it becomes fragile. Remove the input and anxiety appears. This explains why intimacy can feel transactional. Touch without warmth, connection without grounding, access without depth. It's not cruelty, it's adaptation. For men, the mistake is trying to fix intimacy with more intensity, more stimulation, more novelty. That only deepens the pattern. Stoicism teaches moderation for a reason. Depth returns through structure, patience, and restraint. When intimacy feels different, pay attention to how calm is handled. Does calm bring peace or restlessness? Does silence feel safe or threatening? Those reactions reveal capacity for depth. A grounded man does not force intimacy. He observes how it unfolds. He notices whether closeness settles or scatters. He does not argue with sensations. He trusts them. Here's the truth. Intimacy that feels different is information. It tells you what kind of connection is possible without effort. Accepting that truth prevents overinvestment and confusion. If this resonates, write this below. I trust perception. Stay with me because next we'll break down the cost of repeated casual sex and what a grounded man must decide when he sees the full picture. Number 9. The cost of repeated casual sex. Let's be real about this, folks. Repeated casual sex always has a cost, not a moral cost, a psychological one. When intimacy is repeated without attachment, the nervous system adapts in ways most people never examine until connection starts feeling thinner than it should. The first cost is emotional numbness. Casual intimacy trains the body to separate closeness from meaning. Touch becomes familiar. Desire becomes routine. Over time, intensity shows up faster, but it also fades faster. What once felt bonding now feels temporary. That shift changes how relationships form later on. Take John, 58, from California. He starts dating Emily, 51. Emily is relaxed around sex and moves quickly into physical closeness. At first, John feels desired, but weeks later he notices something missing. Emotional closeness does not deepen. After intimacy, Emily seems distant, distracted, already resetting. John feels confused because the chemistry is real, but the connection does not anchor. Another cost is attachment instability. Casual sex spreads emotional investment thin. When no single connection carries weight, bonding feels risky. Commitment increases vulnerability, and vulnerability feels unfamiliar. The system prefers movement over settling. Now look at Robert, 62, from Florida, dating Karen, 54. Karen enjoys intimacy, but avoids defining the relationship. When Robert asks about direction, Karen pulls back emotionally. She is not dishonest. Her system learned that keeping things light reduces risk. The cost is depth. Repeated casual sex also rewires validation loops. Desire becomes proof of worth. Attention becomes regulation. When validation slows, anxiety rises. This makes calm connection feel flat and predictable connection feel dull. Men often misread this as independence or confidence, but confidence builds from self-regulation. Validation dependence builds from repetition. The difference matters. Another cost is reduced tolerance for emotional discomfort. Bonding requires patience. Casual dynamics reward immediacy. When discomfort appears, the instinct becomes exit instead of engagement. This shows up as avoidance, distraction, or sudden detachment. Consider Mike, 56, from Washington, seeing Laura, 49. Laura enjoys the early spark, but when conflict appears, she disengages quickly. Mike tries to repair. Laura prefers to reset. Her history trained her to move on rather than work through. There is also the cost to polarity. Casual sex often removes structure. Without structure, desire scatters. Access becomes common. Common access reduces tension. Tension fuels attraction. Without it, intimacy feels easy but forgettable. This does not mean casual sex is wrong. It means repetition without reflection reshapes capacity. Stoic thinkers warned that habits define outcomes. What we practice becomes what we prefer. If we practice detachment, attachment weakens. For men, the mistake is trying to compensate. More effort, more intensity, more availability. That only deepens the pattern. Attraction does not return through chasing. It returns through structure and clarity. A grounded man looks at cost without judgment. He watches how intimacy behaves over time. Does it deepen or reset? Does it anchor or scatter? Those answers matter more than intention. Here's the truth, my friend. Repeated casual sex trades short-term excitement for long-term depth. Some people are comfortable with that trade. Some are not. Knowing which dynamic you are in protects you from confusion and resentment. If you have seen this before, write this below. I see the cost. Stay with me, because the final part shows what a grounded man must decide when he sees the full picture clearly. Number 10. What a grounded man must decide. Let's bring this home, folks. After everything you've seen, the final question is not about her past. It's about your standards. A grounded man doesn't argue with patterns, doesn't moralize behavior, and doesn't negotiate with his intuition. He decides. Decision starts with acceptance. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means you stop trying to reshape reality into something easier to swallow. You accept what is consistently present. You accept how intimacy behaves, how bonding unfolds, and how boundaries hold or dissolve over time. You accept the data without resentment. A grounded man understands one thing clearly: attraction can exist without compatibility. Chemistry can exist without depth. Sexual access can exist without emotional safety. Confusing these leads to quiet frustration and wasted years. Seeing them clearly restores control. This is where many men hesitate. They hope patterns will change if they invest more, wait longer, or explain themselves better. That hope is understandable, but it's costly. Patterns don't change through effort alone. They change through internal motivation, structure, and time, none of which you can force. So the decision becomes simple, but not easy. Does this dynamic support the kind of connection you want to build at this stage of life? Not the connection you imagine, the one that is actually forming. A grounded man also decides how he shows up. He does not become bitter. He does not withdraw in anger. He does not punish or lecture. He maintains self-respect. He keeps his pace. He stays emotionally regulated. His behavior remains consistent regardless of outcome. This is where Stoicism matters. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that clarity is power when paired with acceptance. You cannot control desire, attachment, or another person's capacity. You can only govern your response. When you do, you stop being pulled into dynamics that drain you. Decision also means responsibility. If you stay without resentment. If you leave without blame. Lingering in indecision erodes dignity. A man who cannot decide teaches his nervous system to tolerate dissatisfaction. Over time, that tolerance becomes identity. Another part of the decision is timing. Grounded men do not rush to conclusions, but they do not delay clarity indefinitely. They observe long enough to see consistency, not just moments. Once consistency is clear, action follows naturally. This decision protects your energy. It keeps you from performing emotional labor hoping for different results. It keeps you from negotiating boundaries you already know are too loose. It keeps you from investing in intimacy that never settles. Here's the quiet truth. Many men know the answer long before they admit it. They feel it when calm feels uneasy. They feel it when bonding stalls. They feel it when effort increases but depth does not. Ignoring that feeling is how men lose themselves slowly. A grounded man listens to that signal. He doesn't dramatize it. He doesn't justify it away. He respects it. The final decision is not about judging her. It's about choosing yourself. Choosing clarity over fantasy. Choosing structure over chaos. Choosing peace over prolonged uncertainty. When you decide from that place, outcomes improve. Sometimes the relationship deepens naturally. Sometimes it ends cleanly. Both are wins. Because you remain intact. That is what a grounded man must decide. So here's the bottom line, folks. In this video, you learned how a woman's past shows up in present behavior, why intimacy can feel different, and how patterns around validation, boundaries, and bonding quietly shape attraction. This wasn't about judging anyone. It was about seeing clearly, protecting your time, and making grounded decisions that align with the kind of connection you actually want. If you want to go deeper into these dynamics and learn how to apply Stoic principles to real relationships without confusion or resentment, consider joining the channel membership. That's where we break things down with more clarity and depth. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. I'll see you again tomorrow.